Coming up, transition of power.
Does the inauguration always take place on January 20th?
What happened on Inauguration Day?
We'll explain just what happens and the history behind Inauguration Day. Plus, Dr. John will be here to answer your latest questions about the coronavirus.
Can dogs get the coronavirus, and do they need the vaccine?
And then, honoring the King. We'll speak with the granddaughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and hear how she's honoring her grandfather. Her inspiring message for other kids is just ahead.
I say that you should have fun, get creative, find something that you're good at and use it for good. That's all what activism is about.
This is NBC Nightly News, Kids Edition.
Welcome back to Nightly News Kids Edition. Hope you guys are doing well. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up as usual, but we want to begin with one of our top stories, and that's the presidential transition of power. A lot has happened these last several days since the riot last week at the U.S. Capitol, and some questions still remain unanswered.
The president's now become the first in 245 years of this nation's history to be impeached twice.
Here to help us understand all that's happened is our friend, presidential historian Michael Beschloss.
Lester, the House of Representatives has voted to impeach President Trump, which means they're saying that he did a bad thing, which was to encourage a mob to go to the Capitol and attack the Capitol and Congress in a way that may have made it very dangerous for us to go forward with our United States government. So by impeaching him, the House is saying he shouldn't have done this and no president should ever do this again. Now it's going to go to the Senate to say, do we convict? Do we agree with the House? And do we say for all time in history, no president should ever behave the way that Donald Trump did last week? And kids, it's really interesting because the impeachment of a president, that has now only happened 4 times in all of American history.
All right, well, on January 20th, President-elect Joe Biden will be sworn in as the next president of the United States. But just what happens on Inauguration Day and how will this year be different? We know you guys have plenty of questions, so we asked our friend Kristen Welker to explain.
I'm Aveline and I'm 8 years old. I'm Faye and I'm 5. And we live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Our question is, what's an inauguration?
What's inauguration?
An inauguration is a ceremony to mark the beginning of something. Every 4 years, a presidential inauguration is held to mark a new term for the President of the United States.
I'm Yutu from New York. Does the inauguration always take place on January 20th?
I'm Grayson and I'm 6 from Massachusetts. Why is the inauguration January 20th?
According to the 20th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the president and vice president begin their terms starting at noon on January 20th. But if January 20th falls on a Sunday, the public ceremony moves to January 21st. In 2013, President Obama took the oath privately on the 20th and repeated it the next day in public.
A presidential inauguration used to be on the 4th of March, not the 20th of January as it now is. The reason they made the change was there was a feeling that there was much too much time between an election in early November and an inauguration in early March.
Presidential inaugurations were first held in New York and Philadelphia. The ceremony moved to the nation's capital in 1801. Thomas Jefferson was the first president to be sworn in Washington, D.C.
Hello, I'm Sarah.
I'm Zoya.
I'm Jackie. We are from the United Kingdom.
What happened on Inauguration Day?
The vice president-elect first takes the oath of office and then the president-elect.
I, Donald John Trump,
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States.
Did you know, with some exceptions, the Chief Justice usually administers the oath of office to the new president? The new incoming president will then give an inaugural address. George Washington started this tradition in 1789, where he delivered a speech to a joint session of Congress in New York City. Did you know the longest inaugural address was given by William Henry Harrison? 8,445 words in 1841. Starting in 1977, Jimmy Carter started the tradition of walking the mile-and-a-half journey from the Capitol to the White House as a part of the inaugural parade. On the night of the inauguration, the president and first lady attend the inaugural balls, another tradition that officially began with President James Madison. But due to the pandemic, Inauguration Day this year will be largely virtual, including a virtual parade. However, at this time, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris still plan on being sworn in on the west front of the U.S. Capitol.
Hi, my name is Madeline. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. And how much security is going to be at the inauguration to protect Joe Biden?
The Secret Service says they are expanding their security plan this year, with tens of thousands of police and federal agents on hand to safeguard the inauguration.
This is the chance for a new president to talk to Americans and say what he would like to do. And it's also a day to say we're at the end of a long and divisive campaign between the new president and the person who ran against him. Now it's time for everyone to unify.
A new chapter to welcome the new president. Approximately 191,500 flags will be displayed on the National Mall, including flags representing every state and territory, all to represent the Americans unable to attend the inaugural ceremonies in person. Lester.
All right, Kristen, thanks so much for that. Let's turn now to another top story we've been following, and that, of course, is the coronavirus. Earlier this week, word that members of the gorilla troop at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park have tested positive for COVID-19. Officials say they're doing okay and experiencing some mild symptoms. They'll continue to keep a close eye on them, and of course, we're hopeful for a full recovery. The San Diego Zoo Safari Park has been closed to the public since early December. Well, speaking of the virus, we received a bunch of new questions from you guys, so let's get straight to them. Joining us now is our pal, Dr. John Torres. Dr. John, our first question is about our four-legged friends. Take a listen.
Hi, my name is Clara. This is Taffy. This is Brizzy. And we live in Charleston, South Carolina. Our question is, can dogs get the coronavirus, and do they need the vaccine?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Dr. John. I worry about my little dog.
You know, this is a great question from Claire. And for those of us that have pets, we love our pets like family members, so we want to keep them safe too. And the important thing to remember is with Tucky and Frizzy, you want to keep them as safe as you do any other family members, because we know dogs like this can get coronavirus. Luckily, they can't transmit it to humans, but when dogs are outside, you want to keep them on a leash so they're not interacting with other humans. They need the social distance like you do. They can't wear a mask, and so it's even more important that you keep them away from other dogs and other humans to protect themselves and protect your family as well. As far as vaccines, they're looking into it, but they don't have a dog vaccine for coronavirus just yet, and they might not even really need one.
All right, our next question comes from Texas.
Hi, my name is Shriyansh Pashman. I live in Austin, Texas. I am 8 years old. My question is, can you get the flu and the coronavirus at the same time? And if you can, will the flu vaccine affect the coronavirus too?
Boy, that's a good question, Dr. John. We haven't talked a lot about the flu lately.
You know, this is actually a very important and a very timely question, because we're right in the middle of flu season and we've been in this pandemic for a complete year. So we don't want people to get both. Now, it is possible to get flu and coronavirus at the same time, although that's very rare, does not happen very often. But it's important to protect yourself from the flu by getting the flu vaccine, which you need to get every year. Now, the flu vaccine will not protect you from coronavirus, and that's why we have a coronavirus, the COVID vaccine, out right now, and adults are starting to get that. Kids eventually will start to get it as well. But in the meantime, you need to do those things that we've been doing for this past year to protect ourselves. And that means wearing your mask, making sure you wash or sanitize your hands, and social distance. That's the way you can avoid not just coronavirus, but also the flu.
All right, Dr. John Torres, thank you as always.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, finally, in our Inspiring Kids series, she is the granddaughter of a civil rights legend and is also finding her own voice. Here to share her story and tell us a little bit about her grandpa is Yolanda Renee King. Yolanda, of course, the granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So your granddad would have been 92 on the 15th of January. We're going to mark the holiday this year on Monday. A lot of kids study Martin Luther King Jr. leading up to this day. What would you want kids to know about your granddad?
My grandfather, just like all people, he was, a father. He was a son. You know, he was a husband, and he had the values. He had the qualities of a person. Most people know him as Dr. King, but he had a family as well. He In fact, he was really involved with his kids. Growing up, my dad has all types of stories about him. After a long day of work, just being that dad that's always there. So, he had the qualities, and I want people to know that as well.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people want to ask you if you're going to follow in his footsteps. I'm really curious, though. Do you see yourself in him, or vice versa? Are there things that you do that say, "Boy, that seems like something my grandpa would have done"?
So yes, in some ways, I think I have some of his qualities, and then I want to be like him, but then I also want to add a bit of myself to it, So I see myself in him, but I also see myself in me. So it's like a mixture. I think that it's good to have a variety, a bit of everything. I always tell people that I want to follow his footsteps, of course, but I also want to make my own footsteps. In our household, my parents and stuff. They encourage me to, make my own footsteps. But then I also want to keep my grandfather's legacy in me, because it's so important, and I've been appealed to do this work, to help people, not just even in some ways for him, but for the world, and also as well to keep his legacy. And I feel like I want to finish the work that he didn't start. So, I think you need a healthy variety of both.
I will tell you, you have a lot of his ability to make a powerful speech. I saw some of the videos of the speeches you did. You did one just this past year, March on Washington. You talked about, social justice, but also what young people could do.
We have mastered the selfie and TikToks. Now we must master ourselves. Less than a year before he was assassinated, my grandfather predicted this very moment. He said that we were moving into a new phase of the struggle. The first phase was the civil rights, and the new phase is genuine equality.
What is your message to young people who want to become activists and want to make this world a better, more peaceful place?
Well, I think many people get confused with activism, that, you just have to be the greatest speaker and you have to be a speaker, which in some cases, I guess, are true, but that's not always the case. There's really no one way how to be an activist. And of course, yes, speaking is part of it, but even maybe if you're looking at rallies or demonstrations close to your community, and you're going with a group of friends, or even with your family, and the people around you, you're going there to support that cause. That can be a form of activism, forming school clubs, making petitions. And it's not even, it could be something like, you saw people writing, like especially during the civil rights movement, like people wrote poems about it, like Maya Angelou, or even paintings, or some of the pictures, like if you look at some of the pictures that Gordon Parks took. So you can use, or even some of the freedom concerts that people did, including my grandmother, who was involved in that. So you can use your voice, your singing voice as well, if you can sing, or maybe you can paint pictures, and pictures can really tell the story. Or maybe you're a dancer. Well, you can write certain plays and pieces, almost like Alvin Ailey, kind of describing the story of it. So there's really no one way to do it. I say that you should have fun, get creative, find something that you're good at and use it for good. That's all what activism is about.
Well, you are an inspiring young woman. Yolanda Renee King, great talking to you. And by the way, I love that picture over your shoulder of your grandma. That's terrific.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, take care.
You too.
Well, that's going to do it for us. Parents, just a reminder, if your child has a question, email a video to us at nightlynewskids@nbcuni.com. And as we say so long, we just want to give a special shout out to one of our regular viewers, Madden. Thanks for watching, buddy. And thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. And remember, take care of yourself and each other.